My wife lost her memory 3 years ago. My daughter and I took her to a neurologist for her condition. When my daughter stepped out, the doctor whispered shakily, "Get your wife away from your daughter." She returned, holding something hidden. My heart stopped. I sat there in that sterile office, the fluorescent lights humming overhead, and I tried to process what the doctor had just said. Dr. Patterson was a middle-aged woman with graying hair pulled back in a tight bun. She'd been treating Elena for the past 6 months, ever since we'd switched from the previous neurologist who hadn't been able to help much. Elena's memory loss had been gradual at first, then suddenly severe after what they called a traumatic brain injury from a fall down our basement stairs 3 years back. The doctor's hands were shaking when she leaned across her desk. Her voice was barely audible, urgent in a way that made my chest tighten. "Mr. Morrison, I need you to listen carefully. Your wife needs to be away from your daughter. Do you understand what I'm telling you?" I opened my mouth to respond, but the door swung open. Jessica walked back in, all smiles, holding 2 paper cups of coffee from the waiting room machine. She handed one to Elena, who sat beside me in the patient chair, looking confused and distant, like she often did these days. "Sorry that took so long," Jessica said brightly. The machine was acting up again. Dr. Patterson's expression shifted instantly, became professional and detached. She shuffled some papers on her desk. "Well, Mrs. Morrison, your tests look stable. We'll continue with the current medication regimen and see you again in 3 months." Elena nodded vaguely. She was 52 but looked older now, her once vibrant auburn hair streaked heavily with gray, her green eyes cloudy with uncertainty. She'd been a force of nature before the accident, sharp, witty, always 3 steps ahead in any conversation. Now she struggled to remember what she'd eaten for breakfast. "Thank you, doctor," Jessica said, standing up. She was 31, my older child, and she'd taken charge of most of Elena's medical care since the accident. At first I'd been grateful. I was 63, recently retired from 40 years as an accountant, and the idea of navigating the medical system had seemed overwhelming. Jessica was organized, efficient, always knew what questions to ask. Now the doctor's words echoed in my head like a warning bell. We walked out to the parking lot, Jessica supporting Elena by the elbow. I followed behind, watching them. The October afternoon was cool, leaves scattered across the asphalt in shades of rust and gold. My hands were shaking, so I shoved them in my jacket pockets. "Dad, you okay?" Jessica glanced back at me. "You look pale." "I'm fine," I said. "Just tired." We climbed into Jessica's SUV. She'd insisted on driving, and headed back toward the house. Elena sat in the front passenger seat, staring out the window. I was in the back, watching the trees blur past, my mind racing. "Get your wife away from your daughter." What the hell did that mean? Why would Dr. Patterson say something like that? And why had she looked so frightened? Jessica was talking about dinner plans, something about bringing over a casserole later. I wasn't really listening. I was thinking about the past 3 years, about how much had changed since Elena's fall. Before the accident, we'd been planning our retirement together. I'd just finished my last tax season at the firm, and we were talking about taking a long trip out west, maybe spending a winter in Arizona. We had savings, a comfortable nest egg I'd built up over decades of careful planning. The house was paid off. Our 2 kids were grown and settled. Then Elena fell. Or that's what we were told. Jessica had been visiting that day, and she said she'd heard the crash from upstairs. By the time she got to the basement, Elena was unconscious at the bottom of the stairs. The doctors said she'd suffered a severe concussion and some kind of traumatic brain damage. Her memory started deteriorating almost immediately. At first, it was small things. She'd forget where she put her keys or what day it was. Then it got worse. She couldn't remember recent conversations. She'd asked the same questions over and over. Eventually, she stopped recognizing some people entirely. Somehow she still knew me, still knew the kids, but everything else was foggy and uncertain. Jessica had stepped up right away. She started coming over every day, helping with Elena's care, managing her medications, taking her to appointments. I'd been grateful. My daughter seemed so dedicated, so concerned. But now, sitting in the back of her SUV, Dr. Patterson's warning replaying in my head, I started to see things differently. We pulled into the driveway of our house on Maple Drive. It was a modest two-story colonial, white with black shutters, surrounded by a neat lawn I'd maintained for 35 years. It had always felt like home. Now it felt like something else, something I couldn't quite name. Jessica helped Elena out of the car and into the house. I followed, still quiet, still thinking. "I'll get her settled upstairs," Jessica said, guiding Elena toward the staircase. "Why don't you rest, Dad? You look exhausted." I nodded and watched them go up. When I heard the bedroom door close, I went to the kitchen and sat at the table. My heart was pounding. I pulled out my phone and stared at it, trying to decide what to do. Call Dr. Patterson back? Demand an explanation? But Jessica would see the call log. She checked my phone sometimes, said she was helping me keep track of appointments. I'd never thought anything of it before. I set the phone down and pressed my palms against my eyes. I was being paranoid. Jessica was my daughter. She loved us. She was helping. But the doctor's face, that fear in her eyes, "Get your wife away from your daughter." Footsteps on the stairs. Jessica came back down, still smiling. "She's resting." I gave her the afternoon meds. "Thanks," I said. Jessica sat across from me. She had her mother's auburn hair, though hers was still vibrant and full. She'd always been the responsible one, the organized one. Her younger brother Daniel was more laid back, less involved. He lived 2 hours away with his wife and their 3 kids. We saw him maybe once a month. "Dad, we need to talk about something," Jessica said. My stomach dropped. "What?" "It's about the house and your finances." She folded her hands on the table, her expression serious. "I've been doing some research, and with Mom's condition, it might be time to think about setting up a trust, maybe looking at assisted living options down the road." "Elena's not going to assisted living," I said flatly. "I know, not now, but we need to plan ahead. And honestly, this house is getting to be too much for you to manage. The yard, the maintenance, everything. What if we looked at downsizing? Maybe a nice condo?" I stared at her. "You want me to sell the house?" "I want you to consider what's best for both of you. You're not getting any younger, Dad. And if something happened to you, what would Mom do? I'm 63, not 90. I know, but these things take time to arrange. And if we set up the trust properly, it would protect your assets, make sure Mom is taken care of no matter what." The way she said, "protect your assets," made something cold settle in my chest. "I'll think about it," I said. Jessica smiled. "That's all I ask. I can have my lawyer husband take a look at everything, make some recommendations. Brandon knows estate planning inside and out." Brandon, Jessica's husband, a corporate lawyer with a shark smile and an expensive suit collection. I'd never warmed to him, but Jessica seemed happy enough. "Sure," I said. "We'll talk about it later." After Jessica left, I sat in the kitchen for a long time, watching the afternoon light fade through the window. Upstairs, I could hear Elena moving around, the familiar creaks of the floorboards. This house had been our life together. Every room held memories, holidays, birthday parties, quiet evenings watching television. The thought of leaving it made me feel sick. But more than that, I kept hearing the doctor's voice. "Get your wife away from your daughter." I stood up and went to my small office off the living room. It was barely more than a converted closet, but it had my desk, my filing cabinets, all my important papers. I'd always been meticulous about record keeping. Decades in accounting had trained me to document everything. I opened the filing cabinet and pulled out the folder marked Financial Current. Inside were bank statements, investment reports, property documents. Everything was organized by date, color-coded tabs marking different categories. I started going through the statements, checking dates and transactions. At first, Everything looked normal. Then I started noticing small discrepancies. Transfers I didn't remember making, checks written to accounts I didn't recognize. Nothing huge, a few $100 here, 1,000 there. Easy to miss if you weren't looking carefully. My hands started shaking again. I pulled out my laptop and logged into our main checking account. It took me a few tries to remember the password. Elena and I had always shared finances, and she'd been the one who usually checked the accounts online. After she got sick, Jessica had offered to help with that too. I'd given her access, figured it would make things easier. Now I scrolled through months of transactions, and my stomach turned. There were transfers, lots of them, to an account I didn't recognize. The amounts varied, but they were consistent. Every few weeks, money moving out. Over the past 3 years, it added up to nearly $80,000. I sat back in my chair, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. Jessica. It had to be Jessica. She was the only other person with access to the accounts. But why? Why would she steal from us? She and Brandon lived well. He made good money at his firm. They had a nice house in the suburbs, drove expensive cars. They didn't need our money, unless it was never about need. I thought about the conversation in the kitchen, the trust, the house, downsizing. She was positioning herself to take control of everything. The anger that rose in me was like nothing I'd felt before. It was hot and sharp and overwhelming. My daughter, my own child, the one I'd raised, put through college, walked down the aisle at her wedding. She'd been robbing us blind. And Elena's accident, the fall down the basement stairs. Jessica had been there that day. She'd been alone with Elena. My hands clenched into fists on the desk. No, I couldn't think like that. I couldn't let myself go there, not without proof. But Dr. Patterson's warning, get your wife away from your daughter. What did the doctor know? What had she seen in Elena's tests or behavior that made her so afraid? I needed to talk to her again, alone, without Jessica around. I grabbed my phone and stepped outside onto the back patio, away from the house. The evening air was cool, the sky darkening to deep purple. I found Dr. Patterson's office number and called. The receptionist answered, cheerful and professional. Neurology Associates, how may I help you? This is Robert Morrison. I need to speak with Dr. Patterson. It's urgent. I'm sorry, Mr. Morrison, but Dr. Patterson has left for the day. If this is a medical emergency, I can direct you to... It's not an emergency. Can I make an appointment to see her? As soon as possible. Just me, not my wife. There was a pause. Let me check her schedule. Would Thursday morning work? She has a slot at 10. 2 days away. I wanted it to be sooner, but I said, yes. Thank you. I hung up and stood there, breathing hard. The anger was still there, simmering under my skin. I looked back at the house, at the lit windows on the second floor where Elena was resting. For 3 years, I'd been sleepwalking through our life, grateful for Jessica's help, trusting her, never questioning anything. What a fool I'd been. But I wasn't going to be a fool anymore. I went back inside and climbed the stairs to the bedroom. Elena was sitting up in bed, looking at a photo album spread across her lap. She looked up when I came in, and for a moment her eyes were clear. Robert, she said, look at this. Is this us? I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the photo she was pointing to. It was from our honeymoon, 34 years ago. We were standing on a beach in Florida, young and tan and grinning like idiots. Yeah, I said, that's us. We look happy, she said softly. We were. She closed the album and looked at me. Something's wrong. I can feel it. I was surprised. Elena's clarity came and went unpredictably. Sometimes she was present and sharp. Other times she was lost in confusion. Right now, she was here with me. I'm handling it, I said. Is it Jessica? My breath caught. What? She's been acting strange lately. Whenever she's here, I feel, I don't know, uncomfortable. Elena frowned. struggling with the words. Like she's watching me, studying me. How long have you felt like this? I don't know. Time is hard for me. She touched the photo album. But something isn't right about her. I know you think I'm confused, but I'm not. Not about this. I took her hand. It was thin and cold, the bones prominent. She'd lost weight over the past few years. I'd attributed it to stress and medication. But now I wondered. I believe you, I said. Elena's eyes filled with tears. I'm not crazy. I know everyone thinks I am, but I'm not. I know, and I'm going to fix this. Fix what? Everything. I helped her get settled for the night, made sure she took her evening medications, though now I found myself wondering what exactly was in those pills, and then I went back downstairs to my office. I spent the next 3 hours going through every document in my filing cabinets, every bank statement, every investment report, every property deed. I made notes, documented everything I found, the transfers, the unexplained expenses, the slow, steady drain on our accounts. It was nearly midnight when I finally stopped. My eyes burned and my head ached, but I had a clear picture now. Jessica had been systematically stealing from us for 3 years, and based on the pattern, it had started almost immediately after Elena's accident. The coincidence was too perfect. I thought about calling the police, reporting her for theft, but what proof did I have? She had access to the accounts. She could claim we'd authorized the transfers, that we'd been giving her money for expenses or helping her out financially. It would be her word against ours. And with Elena's condition, who would believe us? No. I needed more than financial records. I needed to understand the full scope of what was happening, and I needed to talk to Dr. Patterson. I locked everything back in the filing cabinet and went upstairs. Elena was asleep, her breathing soft and even. I stood in the doorway watching her for a moment, this woman I'd spent more than half my life with. She looked fragile in the dim light from the hallway, like she might break if I touched her. I'd always protected her, provided for her, made sure she was safe and comfortable. And somehow, while I was busy congratulating myself on being a good husband, our daughter had moved in and started destroying us from the inside. Not anymore. I went to the guest room and lay down, but I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, my mind working through scenarios and possibilities. The anger had settled into something colder now, more focused. It wasn't the hot, impulsive rage I'd felt earlier. This was different. This was calculation. Jessica thought she was smart, thought she'd gotten away with it. She had no idea who she was dealing with. I'd spent 40 years as an accountant, tracking numbers and finding discrepancies. I knew how to follow a paper trail. I knew how to document evidence, and I knew how to be patient. If my daughter wanted to play games with our lives, I was going to show her exactly what happened to people who underestimated Robert Morrison. By the time the sun came up Thursday morning, I had a plan. As the story unfolds, hit the hype button, like, subscribe, and write in the comments. Would you forgive them or walk away? Thursday morning arrived cold and gray, the kind of October day that promised rain. I was up early, watching the street from the living room window. Elena was still sleeping upstairs. I'd checked on her twice already, an old habit that had become obsessive lately. At 9:30, I told Elena I had an errand to run. She was having a cloudy morning, distant and confused, so she just nodded vaguely when I said I'd be back in a few hours. I hated leaving her alone, but I needed to talk to Dr. Patterson without anyone knowing. The medical building was on the east side of town, a modern glass and steel structure that always felt too cold and impersonal. I parked in the visitor lot and took the elevator to the 4th floor, where the neurology practice occupied the entire north wing. The waiting room was empty, except for an elderly man reading a magazine. I checked in with the receptionist, the same cheerful voice I'd spoken to on the phone. She told me Dr. Patterson would be with me shortly. I sat in one of the uncomfortable chairs and waited, my knee bouncing nervously. On the wall across from me was a poster about brain health, colorful illustrations of neurons and synapses. I stared at it without really seeing it, my mind churning through everything I'd discovered. "Mr. Morrison?" I looked up. Dr. Patterson stood in the doorway to the exam rooms, her expression carefully neutral, but I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands gripped the clipboard. "Please come with me," she said. I followed her down a hallway to her private office, not an exam room. That seemed significant. She closed the door behind us and gestured for me to sit in one of the chairs facing her desk. "Thank you for seeing me," I said. She sat down and folded her hands on the desk. "Mr. Morrison, I need to apologize for what I said during your last visit. It was inappropriate and unprofessional, and I spoke without thinking clearly." "No," I said. "You spoke because you were worried. You saw something. I need to know what it was." Dr. Patterson was quiet for a moment, studying me. Then she sighed and opened a file on her desk. "Your wife's condition has been unusual from the start. The memory loss pattern doesn't fit typical traumatic brain injury recovery. In most cases, we'd expect to see some improvement over time, or at least stabilization. Your wife's condition has been progressively worsening." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I requested additional tests during her last visit." She pulled out a lab report and slid it across the desk to me. The results showed elevated levels of certain medications your wife isn't prescribed. I stared at the report, trying to make sense of the medical terminology. "What medications?" "Benzodiazepines, anti-anxiety drugs. They can cause confusion, memory problems, and cognitive impairment, especially at high doses or when combined with other medications." Dr. Patterson leaned forward. "Mr. Morrison, someone has been giving your wife drugs that are making her condition worse." The floor seemed to tilt under me. "Jessica, I can't make that accusation. I don't have proof of who's responsible, but your daughter manages your wife's medications, correct?" "Yes. She organizes the pill boxes, makes sure Elena takes everything on schedule." My voice sounded hollow in my own ears. "Those pill boxes, do you know exactly what's in them?" I thought about it. "The prescriptions from Elena's doctors. Do you verify the pills yourself? Match them against the prescription bottles?" I didn't. I'd trusted Jessica to handle it. She was always so organized, so efficient. Oh God. "You're telling me my daughter has been poisoning my wife?" Dr. Patterson's expression was pained. "I'm telling you that your wife is being given medications that are not prescribed and that are causing harm. Who's responsible is something you need to determine. But Mr. Morrison, if this continues, your wife's cognitive decline will become permanent. We may already be past the point of full recovery." I felt sick. I thought about Elena lying in bed at home, confused and frightened, unable to hold on to thoughts or memories. And all this time, it wasn't just the accident. It was Jessica, deliberately keeping her mother impaired. "Why?" I asked. "Why would she do this?" I can't answer that, but in my experience, when family members deliberately harm a relative, it's usually about control or money. Money, the $80,000, the talk about trusts and selling the house. It all fit together now with horrifying clarity. Jessica had been keeping Elena disabled so she could take control of our finances, so she could manipulate both of us, position herself as the responsible daughter helping her aging parents, and eventually, she'd get us to sign everything over to her. "What do I do?" I asked. My hands were shaking again. "First, you need to stop your daughter from administering any medications to your wife. Take control of that yourself. Second, you need to bring your wife back here for a full evaluation. I'll need to document everything carefully, and we'll need to slowly wean her off whatever she's been given. It could take weeks or months for her system to clear and for us to see if she can recover." Dr. Patterson paused. And third, you should consider contacting the police. Would that work? Do you have enough evidence? But proving who's giving them to her and that it's intentional, that's more complicated. Your daughter could claim your wife is confused and taking the wrong pills herself, or that someone else is responsible. Without catching her in the act, it's difficult to prosecute. I stood up, feeling like I might explode out of my skin if I sat still any longer. She's stealing from us too. I found bank statements. She's been transferring money out of our accounts for 3 years. That's evidence. Combined with the medication issue, you could build a case. But Mr. Morrison, I need to warn you. These situations can get very ugly very quickly. If you accuse your daughter, especially if you involve authorities, there will be consequences. Family relationships will be destroyed. Are you prepared for that? I looked at her. She's been destroying my wife's mind to steal from us. There's no relationship left to save. Dr. Patterson nodded slowly. Then you need to be smart about this. Document everything. Get your wife somewhere safe, and make sure you have legal representation. I thanked her and left, my mind spinning. The drive home felt like a dream, the familiar streets passing in a blur. When I pulled into the driveway, Jessica's SUV was parked out front. My stomach dropped. I got out of the car and went inside. Jessica was in the kitchen with Elena, who sat at the table looking dazed. "Dad, there you are," Jessica said. "Where were you?" "Errands," I said shortly. I looked at Elena. "How are you feeling?" "Tired," Elena murmured. She looked worse than when I'd left, her eyes unfocused. "I gave her the morning medications," Jessica said. "She was having a rough time, so I gave her something extra to help her relax." Something extra. More of whatever she'd been poisoning Elena with. "What did you give her?" I asked, keeping my voice level. Jessica looked surprised. "Just what the doctor prescribed." "Why?" "Which doctor?" "What?" "Which doctor prescribed the extra medication you just gave her?" Jessica's expression shifted, became guarded. "Dad, what's going on? Why are you interrogating me?" "Answer the question." "Dr. Patterson prescribed everything. You know that. You were there for the appointments." Jessica's voice took on a concerned tone. "Are you feeling okay? You seem upset." I wanted to grab her by the shoulders and shake her. I wanted to scream at her, tell her I knew everything. But Dr. Patterson's warning echoed in my head. Be smart. Document everything. "I'm fine," I said. "Just tired." Jessica studied me for another moment, then smiled. "You should rest. I'll stay with Mom for a while, make sure she's comfortable." "No," I said. The word came out harder than I intended. "I mean, I can handle it. You should go home. I'm sure Brandon needs you." "Brandon's at work. I don't mind staying." "Jessica, go home." Something flickered across her face, annoyance, maybe anger, but she kept smiling. "Okay, Dad, if that's what you want. But call me if you need anything, okay? Anything at all." She grabbed her purse and left. I watched through the window as she got in her SUV and drove away. When I was sure she was gone, I went to Elena. "Can you stand?" I asked. She nodded vaguely. I helped her up and guided her to the living room couch, where I could keep an eye on her. Then I went to the kitchen and found the pill organizer that Jessica maintained. It was a large weekly container with morning and evening slots for each day. I dumped all the pills onto the counter and started sorting through them. Some I recognized from Elena's prescription bottles in the bathroom cabinet. Others I didn't recognize at all. Small white tablets, blue capsules, yellow pills. Nothing was labeled. I took out my phone and started photographing everything, making sure to get clear shots of each pill type. Then I gathered up all the unfamiliar ones and put them in a plastic bag. I'd take them to a pharmacist, have them identified. The pills from Elena's actual prescriptions went back into the organizer. Everything else was hidden away in my office. When I came back to the living room, Elena was more alert. The glazed look was fading from her eyes. "Robert?" she said. "What's happening?" I sat beside her and took her hand. Jessica's been giving you drugs, bad drugs that are making you worse. Elena's eyes widened. I knew it. I told you something was wrong. I know. I'm sorry I didn't believe you sooner, but I'm fixing it now. What are you going to do? Good question. I thought about Dr. Patterson's advice. Contact the police. But what evidence did I really have? Pills that might be anything, Jessica's word against ours, and Elena's testimony would be considered unreliable given her condition. No, I needed more than that. I needed something irrefutable. I'm going to catch her, I said. Prove what she's been doing. How? An idea was forming in my mind, dark and risky. By making her think she's still getting away with it. By letting her believe she's winning. Elena squeezed my hand. Be careful. She's dangerous. I know. Daniel stayed through Wednesday. He helped me reinforce the security system, install additional locks, and go through more financial records. We found 3 more accounts Jessica had been siphoning money from, smaller amounts, but they added up. The total was now over $90,000. She's been so systematic about it, Daniel said, looking at the spreadsheet we'd built. Taking just enough that it wouldn't be immediately obvious. Until it was too late to stop her easily, I said. Daniel looked troubled. What are you going to do with all this evidence? I'm going to make sure she can't hurt anyone else. You mean press charges? If necessary. Dad, she's still my sister. I know what she did was terrible, but what? She poisoned your mother. She stole from us. She tried to have us declared incompetent so she could take everything. What part of that deserves mercy? Daniel didn't have an answer for that. He left Thursday morning, promising to come back the following week. I watched him drive away and felt a strange emptiness. My children. One had tried to destroy us, and the other had almost let it happen through willful ignorance. Kirsch called that afternoon. I've got something interesting. Your daughter and her husband met with someone yesterday, a man named Vincent Russo. Who's that? Private investigator, but not the respectable kind. Russo has a history, harassment charges, illegal surveillance, a suspended license that was just reinstated. He's the kind of guy you hire when you want to play dirty. My stomach tightened. What would she hire him for? Could be anything. Background checks, surveillance, digging for dirt. With people like Russo, it usually means they're looking for leverage. Leverage for what? For the guardianship case. If she can find evidence of incompetence or illegal activity on your part, she strengthens her position. Russo specializes in finding things, even if he has to manufacture them. I thought about that. Can we fight back? Use our own investigator? You already are. But Mr. Morrison, I need to warn you. If Russo starts spreading lies or fabricating evidence, things could get very nasty very quickly. Your reputation could be damaged before you even get a chance to defend yourself. After hanging up, I sat in my office for a long time, thinking. Jessica was escalating. The welfare check hadn't worked. The threats hadn't worked. Now she was hiring someone to dig up or manufacture dirt on me. I needed to be smarter. Faster. I needed to hit her first, hit her hard enough that she couldn't recover, and I needed to do it soon. Friday afternoon, I had an idea. It was risky, maybe crazy, but I couldn't see another way forward. I called a real estate agent I'd worked with years ago. Sharon, this is Robert Morrison. I need to list my house. She sounded surprised. Your house on Maple Drive? I thought you loved that place. Things change. Can you come by Monday to do an assessment? Of course. But Robert, are you sure about this? Very sure. Next, I called the classic car appraiser. Tom, those cars you evaluated last week, I want to sell them. All 4? All 4. Can you help me find buyers? I can, but it'll take time. Cars like these, you want the right collectors? I need it done quickly, within 2 weeks. Tom whistled. That's ambitious. You won't get top dollar if you rush. I don't care. I need them sold. Okay, I'll make some calls. Elena came into the office while I was making the calls. She listened, then said, You're liquidating everything. Yes. Why? Because I want Jessica to know she's lost. I want her to see that the money she was so desperate for is gone, and I want to make sure she can never get her hands on it. Where will the money go? Somewhere safe, somewhere she can't touch it. I spent the weekend setting up new accounts at a different bank in a different town. I opened trusts for Daniel's children, college funds Jessica wouldn't be able to access. I made charitable donations to organizations I cared about. By Sunday night, our liquid assets had been redistributed across a dozen different accounts and trusts, none of them vulnerable to Jessica's schemes. Sharon came by Monday morning to assess the house. She walked through every room, took notes, asked questions about recent repairs and upgrades. You've maintained it beautifully, she said. In this market, I'd say it's worth about $450,000, maybe $475,000 if we get the right buyer. How fast can you sell it? Depends. Good houses in good neighborhoods move quickly. We could have an offer within a few weeks. Do it. Sharon looked at me seriously. Robert, selling a house is a big decision. Are you sure you and Elena have thought this through? We have. Where will you go? We're looking at options. In truth, I had no idea where we'd go, but it didn't matter. What mattered was taking away Jessica's prize. If she somehow managed to get guardianship or force us out, she'd find nothing. No house, no cars, no accessible bank accounts. Just the satisfaction of knowing she'd destroyed her relationship with her parents for nothing. Tuesday, Sharon listed the house. By Wednesday, we had 3 showing appointments scheduled. Jessica must have seen the listing online because she called Wednesday afternoon. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Dad, I see you listed the house. What the hell are you doing? Call me back. We need to talk about this. I deleted the message. Thursday morning, Tom the appraiser called. I've got buyers interested in all 4 cars. They're offering $280,000 total. It's below market value, but you said speed was priority. Take it. You're sure? Take the offer. Okay, I'll have the paperwork ready by next week. Friday, we had an offer on the house. $460,000, cash, quick close. Sharon called, excited. This is an excellent offer, Robert. The buyers are motivated. We could close in 30 days. Accept it. Don't you want to think about it? Talk it over with Elena? Accept the offer. After she hung up, Elena sat beside me on the couch. We looked around the living room, at the walls we'd painted together, the floors we'd refinished, the fireplace where we'd spent countless evenings. This was our home, Elena said softly. I know. And now we're leaving it. We have to. It's not just about Jessica. It's about starting over, being free of all this. Elena nodded, tears in her eyes. Where will we go? I'd been thinking about that. Somewhere warm, maybe Arizona like we planned before your accident. Somewhere Jessica won't follow. What if she does? Then we'll deal with it. But at least we'll be on our terms, not hers. Kirsch called Saturday morning. Vincent Russo has been following you. He's got photos of you meeting with your lawyer, selling your cars, listing the house. Jessica's building a narrative that you're liquidating assets irrationally. I'm liquidating them deliberately. The court won't see it that way. They'll see an elderly man making drastic financial decisions quickly. It could support a competency challenge. Let her try. I've got documentation for every decision. Power of attorney, legal advice, everything. Mr. Morrison, I'm worried you're underestimating the risk here. Jessica has a lawyer, an investigator, and a story that makes her look like a concerned daughter trying to protect her incompetent father. You have receipts and recordings. In court, emotion often beats logic. Then we need to make sure it doesn't get to court. I hung up and made another call. this time to a journalist I'd found through an internet search. Her name was Rebecca Torres, and she wrote investigative pieces for a regional newspaper about elder abuse and financial exploitation. "Ms. Torres, my name is Robert Morrison. I have a story you might be interested in." We met Sunday afternoon at a coffee shop halfway to her office. Rebecca was in her 40s, sharp-eyed and professional. She listened as I laid out everything: Jessica's theft, the medication tampering, the guardianship threats. I showed her the evidence, the recordings, the documents. "This is explosive," she said, "but I need to verify everything independently. Talk to the doctors, check the financial records, confirm the timeline." "How long will that take?" "A few weeks, maybe a month. And Mr. Morrison, you should know. If I write this story, it will destroy your daughter's reputation. Possibly her marriage and her career. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about Elena, confused and frightened for 3 years, while her own daughter kept her drugged. I thought about the money Jessica had stolen, the lies she'd told, the threats she'd made. "Yes," I said, "I'm prepared." Rebecca started working on the story. Meanwhile, the house sale moved forward. We had inspections, appraisals, title searches, everything checked out. The closing was scheduled for mid-November. I started packing, 40 years of life in boxes, photos, books, dishes, furniture. Most of it we'd donate or sell. We'd take only what mattered, what we could fit in a moving truck. Daniel came down again to help. He looked around at the half-packed rooms and shook his head. "I can't believe this is really happening." "Believe it." "Have you talked to Jessica at all?" "No. She's been calling me. She's furious. She says you're having some kind of breakdown, that we need to stop you." "What did you tell her?" "That you seem perfectly rational to me, that maybe she should focus on her own problems instead of trying to control yours." "How'd she take that?" "She hung up on me." The first week of November, Rebecca called. "I've finished my preliminary investigation. The story checks out. I'm ready to publish." "When?" "Next Sunday, front page of the regional section." My heart raced. "What's the headline?" "Daughter's years-long scheme to defraud elderly parents." It's detailed. I name Jessica and Brandon, include their photos, document everything. By Monday morning, it'll be everywhere online. "Thank you." "Mr. Morrison, be prepared for blowback. Jessica will likely claim defamation, try to attack your credibility. This is going to get ugly." "It's already ugly." The week before publication, I made one final call to Jessica. She answered immediately. "Dad, finally, we need to talk. I just wanted to let you know that next Sunday there's going to be a story in the newspaper about you, about what you did to us." Silence. Then, "What?" "An investigative journalist has spent the past month verifying everything. The theft, the medication tampering, all of it. It's going to be public." "You didn't." "I did. And by Monday everyone will know what kind of person you really are." "Dad, please, don't do this. We can work it out. We can fix this." "It's too late for that." "Dad." "Goodbye, Jessica." I hung up and turned off my phone. Elena looked at me, her expression unreadable. What happens now? Now we wait. Sunday morning, the newspaper hit doorsteps all over the region. Within an hour, it was trending online. My phone, which I'd turned back on, started buzzing with calls and texts. Friends, former colleagues, neighbors. Everyone had seen the story. I didn't answer any of them. By afternoon, Jessica's husband Brandon released a statement claiming the story was false, that they were victims of a malicious smear campaign, that they'd be pursuing legal action. By evening, 2 more families had come forward with similar stories about Jessica's behavior when she'd helped them with elder care. The story was growing. Monday morning, Brandon's law firm released a statement saying he'd been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into the allegations. Tuesday, the medical board opened an investigation into the medication tampering. Wednesday, our bank called to report that Jessica had tried to access our accounts again, Patricia had blocked her and filed a report with the fraud department. By Thursday, Jessica and Brandon's house was officially in foreclosure. The story mentioned it, and suddenly, everyone knew they'd been drowning in debt. Friday, exactly 1 week after the story broke, Kirsch called. "Mr. Morrison, you need to see this." He sent me a link. It was a news article from a local website. The headline read, "Jessica Morrison Talbot files for bankruptcy, claims defamation ruined her life." I read the article. Jessica was claiming the newspaper story had destroyed her reputation, cost her husband his job, and ruined their finances. She was filing for Chapter 7 bankruptcy and threatening to sue me, Rebecca Torres, and the newspaper for defamation. "Let her sue," I told Kirsch. "Every word in that story was true. She won't win a defamation case, but she can make it expensive and time-consuming. I don't care. She brought this on herself." The house closed the following week. Elena and I signed the papers, took the check, and watched as the new owners got the keys to our home of 35 years. We loaded the last of our belongings into a moving truck and drove away. We didn't look back. We drove west, toward Arizona, toward the warm sunshine and the new life we'd planned all those years ago before everything fell apart. The moving truck rumbled down the highway, and Elena sat beside me, watching the landscape change through the window. "Do you think she'll ever understand what she did?" Elena asked. "No," I said. "People like Jessica never do. They always think they're the victims." "What about Daniel?" "Daniel understands, and he's going to be fine. He's stronger than I gave him credit for." We drove through the afternoon and into the evening, leaving everything behind. The house, the town, the memories, all of it receding in the rearview mirror. "Robert," Elena said as the sun set in front of us, painting the sky orange and red. "Are we going to be okay?" I reached over and took her hand. "Yes, we're going to be fine." And for the first time in 3 years, I believed it.